He doesn't commission the writing of the New Testament. He says nothing about that. He doesn't even tell his disciples to write it out after his departure. And the Gospels weren't written for 40 or 50 years after his resurrection anyway. Most of that by second and third hand witnesses. No, Jesus doesn't really exhort his people to live like Judaism, with a religion strictly controlled by the book and by the instruction of the book. And neither do the apostles. They use the Bible like Jesus to be a witness to Jesus. They interpret it sometimes quite liberally, quite freely, in the service of the gospel. That's their hermeneutic. And more than that, read the whole book of Romans. Where in the book of Romans does Paul exhort the Roman community the importance of even living out of the Bible? Doesn't mention it. Read the epistles of John, where he confronts heresy and he wants to protect the church against error. Why doesn't John in 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, for goodness sake, why doesn't he say something about, if only you'd studied the Bible? It's conspicuous by its absence. Hey, what's going on here? And most surprising of all, look at the Galatian situation. Paul goes down to Galatia. They're Gentile people. They don't have an Old Testamental background. He preaches the gospel, not by explicating text. He tells what God has done, this action in the life, death, resurrection of Christ. And the witnesses, they receive the Spirit. And then back in Jerusalem, there's other Christians. And says, they are scandalized what Paul has done. He simply preached the gospel. These people have become believers in Jesus. But Paul is a very deficient evangelist. He hasn't told these people how to live as Christians. So what do? They tuck their Bible under their arm, their old Hebrew Bible, and they race off to Galatia and says, yes, Paul has brought you to the gospel, but he hasn't told you how you ought to live. And here is the book that you are to live by. You're to live by this book. You are to live out of this book. The only thing he seems to exhort is that they study the Scriptures to see there a witness to himself, not as a rule book by which to live by. He has now become the living shepherd, the living Torah. Why isn't it Jesus like Judaism, contemporary Judaism, running around everywhere with the text? Why isn't he like modern Christians? Thumping, thumping, thumping. The Bible, the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. You must live by the Bible. You must live by the Bible. You must live out of the book. It's not there. Conspicuous by its absence. And when Jesus meets with his disciples for the last time to give his final instructions, he's telling them that he's about to leave them, and they're very sad. Does he comfort them in saying, well, there's going to be something to take my place. After I leave, you'll have it written out, and you are to live by the book. The amazing thing, he says nothing about Scripture, nor even the importance of it.